Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Agnes, and all of you. Thank you. Starting with what we have already been told about your good work. I came here at the invitation of Barbara. She asked if I could meet with you, and I said, sure. I was more than happy to come here and talk to you and use that time to thank you for coming to Rwanda, for the work you are doing in different places where many of you come from and beyond, in service of global health. Very evidently, everything more or less starts with health. If we are not healthy right from the time we are born, then nothing is going to work. So, and that's why, in our case, what we chose to do was to prioritize health. First of all, it starts with health, as I said, education, and then the rest will follow. There are many other important things, but those follow: health and education. The reason also I'm thanking you is when you look at our development challenges, generally, there is a problem of capacity. So what you bring in the work you are doing, the sharing that goes on, working together, the different backgrounds you come from, you bring and create that capacity with the colleagues you work with from different countries. And that gap keeps narrowing all the time. So the experience is that capacity is developed in the health sector, where some of the challenges that we see in individual countries or globally have also been increasing, and therefore there is need for more capacity, more better ways of dealing with those challenges. So this movement that we have come to know about, that you, in which you are leaders, is a movement that has a huge impact, and to deal with this kind of cause that addresses the global challenges we see every day in the area of health. So while you are here in Rwanda, I just wanted to tell you that we appreciate you, we appreciate the work you are doing, and let's continue with the partnership and keep the movement growing and reaching many other places. And for us, we can only express happiness from about the work you do and the benefit we have from that, but also promise to contribute to that in whatever modest way we can. We will do that for ourselves, but also working with you for many others that need to be reached and touched, and so that many of their challenges are also addressed, starting with what you bring to bear on that. And here in Rwanda, I keep telling people where we have come from 21 years ago and the many challenges we have faced. For things that we have done and made progress on, I tell people that if Rwanda can do it, anybody else, any other country can do it. So lessons learned here may benefit other places. There is nothing really very special or particularly unique that can be done here that can't be done elsewhere. Here we have only been challenged so much that we have had to confront these challenges the best way we could. And where we have made progress is because maybe in other places, if there were similar problems, the same progress could have been made as well. So, and dealing with health issues, as you know, much better than me, are cross-cutting really. We're not talking about health, you're talking about almost every sector contributing to that and also benefiting from that. I think they were talking to us about architects and others in different professions contributing to achieving the different global health goals. So it's about women, it's young people, leaders like you, girls and boys, men and women. Everybody has something to contribute. And in fact, if we make it everybody's business, that's when it works. If everybody participates, if everybody contributes. And that is something we have tried to practice ourselves almost in everything. When there is a problem here, whether it is in health or education, as I said, or any other sector, we have found it very beneficial that we mobilize everybody. We have the mayors, we have the ministers of different ministries, the cabinet ministers, and well, we mobilize even the other ministers, those in the religious field. You know, everybody is mobilized to make their contribution, and that's when it works, and we have found that it works like that, when everybody participates in what, after all, in the end, affects us all. So it's on this note that I'm here to thank you, to share with you, to and welcome you, so that your visit, your presence here is not going to be a one-off thing, but rather a practice. So you are most welcome whenever you can visit with us. You are most welcome. And we hope to see you again. So it has become an annual roadshow that every year since 2009, I think. Yeah, you've been having these kinds of gatherings here in Rwanda, so we can only hope for better practice of it, and I just wanted to assure you that, by the way, when for other times you are here, I think this place did not exist, this very hotel. So next time you'll be in another place with another new thing. And, so thank you very much. I think we can continue the conversation by anyone here in the audience raising any point of discussion as you wish. I was going to say ask any questions, but it doesn't have to be questions all the time. It can also be suggestions and solutions that we can also learn from. Thank you very much.
Hello, many thanks for your time, Your Excellency. My name is Natasha Mbabazi, and my question for you, after going to the memorial, what challenges have you had maintaining unity amongst Rwandans?
Well, there will always be challenges, and these challenges relate to the background of our problems, of our story. What we inherited 21 years ago was a divided country, divided society, made even much worse by the genocide that took place and, displacements of the population and all kinds of troubles. And this has had a history of decades, really. The 94 tragic situation didn't just erupt, didn't just happen. It happened because it had a history in which it was building up to that point. Where Rwandans had been taught how different they are and how to be different and how to, hate each other. And in history, this is what was happening for many years. And really people did a good job of that, of hating each other, of feeling they are different and they can't come together, and that's what led to that. So changing the mindset, what people have been taught all the way, and has been difficult. It in itself, it presents a big challenge. But based on that particular problem again, and how the whole country has suffered, because everybody here in the country, there's not a single family, a single individual that I know who benefited from the tragedy. So it made it a little easier to challenge people and say, just look a little bit in the history. Who benefited from this? What does it mean here? Are we the kind of people that should have killed one another to this extent, and everybody is a loser, no one benefited? So why not do things differently? Why not consider ourselves different, that we may be, from each other, but at the same time use this diversity and the talent, the power actually of being different for a common cause, meaning the cause for the whole country, for all of us, for the nation of Rwanda. Well, that was the message. And the message was clear and became clearer even in comparison with the past. But then the message is never enough. You got to do things that, match with the message. And then this is how, when I was talking earlier about participation, about everybody being part of what is happening and benefiting. This is what I meant. But then it has to be a practical way of doing it. For example, if you talk about education, does every child of every family have access to education without looking at their background or how different they are from the other? It's about health. Do they have health that touches all of them and doesn't discriminate? Do people, if they are doing business, do they have the same opportunity? Can they, generally, do they have the same opportunity? So then policies driven by that start matching the message that I was talking about. So it's the message. The message is never enough until you do practical things that will convince people that what they are hearing is really what it is, and that it actually touches all of them. It doesn't just reach one family and doesn't go to the other just because they are different. So these things have, the history itself has been a huge challenge, and what has happened in it, and the lessons, people are taught being different and how they should actually be different and never get together. But then reversing that is what we are seeing. And I think the progress proves that a different story about Rwanda can be written. So that's what we are witnessing today.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Your Excellency. I'm Jennifer Zhu, and I was wondering what you see is the role of foreign aid in Rwanda today and later in the future.
Well, first of all, foreign aid in and of itself means that where they need it so badly, there's something wrong. That's the starting point. But then you have to accept the reality as well. So the reality is that Rwanda has needed foreign aid and may continue to need foreign aid in some foreseeable future. But what does that mean? It means, as I said, if there is a problem, then you need to address the problem. The problem of needing foreign aid means you are not capable of standing on your own feet, your own legs. So you need help. But the question arises, do you need help forever? Or you need help so that you can be able to stand on your own feet? I think this is really the crux of the matter. How fast that can be achieved is another question. And the faster, the better. So for us, the argument has been, we need foreign aid so that we don't need it in the future. We need it so that we use it for building our own capacities so that we don't need it. And the struggle is about how fast we can move on that. So I think this is where we are. If you see the dependency on that, on foreign aid, how it has been dropping, I think we are making good progress. And we want to keep making that kind of progress. So the difference for us is how we are able to use foreign aid properly, because foreign aid can also be wasteful or wasted by people who get it. If you don't put it, for example, to build health systems, and I mean health systems, because so there is something that is standing even in the absence of aid in the future. If you don't build the kinds of institutions that serve the nation, serve the country, the capacities I talked about, then you may keep needing foreign aid. And needing foreign aid, as I said, is a problem. It's a big problem. Needing foreign aid forever is a much worse problem. So that's what we have to deal with.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, Your Excellency. My name is Angel Chelwa. I'm from Zambia. And my question is just considering how the amazing strides that Rwanda has made with regard to equity in participation for men and women in national issues. I just wanted to find out, considering that participation, gainful participation goes beyond just the availability or the willingness of people to participate, what has Rwanda done differently to ensure that there's a large percentage of women in institutions and in parliament and in decision-making positions that goes beyond the obvious creating a quota? Thank you.
Sure. Good point. And you know, creating a quota, or again, as I said, delivering the message is one thing. Doing something that matches the message is another. But one thing that has worked here and hasn't been lacking is political will. Political will has to be there. Political will means that if we have a message, all of us, and we talk about equity, we talk about empowering women, or all kinds of things, it's not just talking about it, it's about also wanting to do it, and then doing it. So we have identified, for example, empowering women and women participation as something very necessary for our development, the development of the country. We are on the basis also that, after all, isn't it the right of these women? It's an issue of rights, really. Second, it also becomes a kind of common sense issue. If you are talking about the whole population, for Rwanda, women constitute 52% of our population. I don't think one would be very intelligent to think that you exclude 52% of your population and you are really doing something smart. So we involving women based on the right of women, and then the common sense issues of saying these are our mothers, sisters, daughters we are talking about, part of us, who have, as human beings, their own dignity. They have everything to contribute like anybody else can, meaning men who at times exclude them, and so on and so forth. So political will hasn't been lacking. And we have really demonstrated practically that things can be done, and we haven't, so far, I don't think anybody has proved us wrong. Yes. Yes.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency, and thank you for this privilege. My name is Nicole Maddox, and my question is, what influence do you think the genocide had in shaping the leaders of tomorrow, especially those who did not experience it?
Well, those who did not experience it, but in a way they experience it. Experiencing it is not a matter of physical presence during the time it was happening. But, for example, even if you consider young people at the time genocide was happening, say who were even 1 year old or 2 or 3 or 4, didn't understand what was going on around them. But as they grow up, now those who were born at the time about 20, 21, 19, around that time, the same people realize, for example, some of them are orphans, by the way. Or they are children of orphans. So what does that mean? It means it comes to you, even if people were born after that. Because, it's like you ask about your grandparents or your parents, and they'll tell you they are not there. And then the people will want to say what happened to them. So definitely it has an effect, and it has a way it shapes the minds. It raises questions. It says, why don't I have my parents? Why don't I have my grandparents? And then the story is told, and therefore it works on the mind. So that has to be coupled with the discussions that take place in the day, today. The discussions about our history, about what went wrong, about, the problems we found ourselves in, that we were part of, in any case. So the young people, and we tell them as openly as I am now, can't be bystanders. They are part of this whole story of Rwanda, where we have come from, where we are, and where we want to be tomorrow. So they can't fully participate unless they know where the country is coming from, even in the times they were not there. That put together shapes and really informs the minds of our young people as to the kinds of challenges they have to deal with. The challenges we have to deal with, our young people have to deal with, have that connection with the history. They are not just the future issues to look at. They are future issues to look at, but that have roots in the history. So I'm sure young people get to be shaped by these lessons, but which we shouldn't take for granted that they will understand until they are put in the open for discussion, and whether in homes or in schools or wherever, they've got to learn something about this, and then they figure out, and as we go along, how they deal with such a situation at a personal level or at a much wider level. So I should say it's not only the young people, but the question was pertinent, the one you asked. But there is something about the whole cycle of our population, our people. This genocide has definitely affected both the old and the young in a way, differently, but very fundamentally. And it's something we shall have to deal with for a long time, and the young people will have to be part of it as we get out of all this that has happened to us.
Mr. President, my name is Sudeep Bhandari, and I'm from Kathmandu, Nepal. As you might be aware of, Nepal recently went through a destructive earthquake that killed over 8,000 people. Not too long ago, we went through a civil war that resulted in the death of 15,000 Nepalese. The young people in Nepal are getting hopeless and actually leaving in large masses Nepal in search for a better life. Based on your experiences in post-genocidal Rwanda, what suggestions do you have for countries like Nepal that have gone through devastations like this to retain young talent and ensure that they're hopeful for the future? Thank you.
Well, the simple message is never give up. And there have got to be people who don't give up. And it's like this movement you have here, you start something and you want to grow it, you do things that actually make that happen. So in any situation like that of Nepal, like our own, like many other places in the world, there have got to be people who don't give up, and then they give hope to others as well not to give up. But some of the things that have happened, there's not much we can do about what has happened. But there will also be many things to happen in the future, because some of them, as you know, like the earthquake, you can't predict that it will happen in Nepal or anywhere else, and it will come to that magnitude where it affects hundreds of thousands of millions of people. So it has to be, in a way, anticipated that something will happen somewhere, someday, and people will be affected so badly. But like it happened here, we had this genocide, and but the only difference is genocide is really man-made. It's not like an earthquake. But you said earlier also in Nepal there have been those other problems as well, other than the earthquake. So and of course the young people who are the majority, as we see in many countries today, at least in my own, by the way, where we have I think under 30 and below 70% or something of our population. So you can see these are the ones who largely get caught up in all this. But nations, people, generally societies, have to live on. They can't, like, people tried to make a section of our population here in Rwanda disappear. But people refuse to go, refuse to disappear. A few people still stayed and have to live on. So those who survive those tragic situations, there will always be people ready to pick up the pieces and move on, and others build on that. And so don't give up. This is what the only, in brief, that's what I can say. We never gave up, and we survived. And in Nepal, I know you're doing that, or capable of doing that, so don't give up.
Your Excellency, it is a great honor to have you here with us. My question is, Rwanda. My name is Aisha Twalib and I'm from Malawi. My question is, Rwanda being one of the success stories in Africa in terms of development, we've seen a significant increase in development indicators like health, education, women empowerment, as well as the economy. What lesson would you like to share with us that can be replicated in other African countries? Thank you.
Well, let me say, kind of repeating this again. If Rwanda can do it, Malawi can, right? So, really, and happily, many countries, including Malawi, we have had an opportunity to share with them our own experiences. And not everything that has worked for us will always work for everybody else. But there will always be something to learn from one another. It's something that we learn from Malawi, and Malawi can learn something from us. So it's that sharing, really. And as I said then earlier, with people having the willpower and wanting to do things, it will happen. So for us, we can share what we have done and has worked for us. We can even share things that have not worked for us. And so that other people may not have to waste time trying what may not work. So it's this, happily, we are always open and happy to share with our colleagues across the continent, our failures, our successes, and this has been happening. Yes, there are different programs I know that are taking place between Rwanda and Malawi and have happened before. I remember visiting Malawi a few years ago and learning from how Malawi was solving the problem of food security. I was taken through what has happened, over the years, the investments they made, in which areas and how. And at the time, Malawi was, feeding almost a big part of Southern Africa. And they have been coming here, Malawi. People from Malawi have come here to learn different things we are doing in ICT, and have programs ongoing. We have had many exchanges with other countries. So it's through these kinds of exchanges and contacts that lessons will be learned by everybody.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for this golden opportunity. I'm Benjamin Dayambaje from Rwanda. My question is, I am among the 12 million people who are advocating for the change of 101 law of constitution that sets limits, presidential limits. And I'm asking, you have been, all the fellows, all the internationals have seen the development you have gone through. Now, my question is, I don't want to repeat all the development, but my question is, how do you see when the term limits ends or when you're out of the office? What do you think will happen? How do you see Rwanda when you're not there? Thank you, Your Excellency.
Well, I can tell you what I wish for my country, what I wish to happen when I leave office. I just wish the country to continue with the stability and development as the case is happening, and yeah, and all of us agreeing that there is always life after any of these things we are doing. Certainly for me, I'm very much prepared for that. I think I have some business to do. Whatever happens, building on whatever is being expressed or talked about, whichever way things happen, I won't give up. I want my life to continue. I'll continue with my good life.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an incredible opportunity. My name is Joe Shapiro, and my question for you is, what keeps you up at night? Thank you.
I actually tend to have a good sleep at night. At least whenever I have time, I have really good sleep. I've never had problems with my sleep, except for lack of time to sleep. Then it comes to your point. Sometimes I go late into the night doing what I was doing during the day. And that is dealing with and thinking about these challenges that go with my responsibility of leading this country and making sure that we bring the energies and the talents of Rwandans together to bear on these problems and find a solution. So I'm constantly thinking about that, and it's health, it's education, it's business, it's security for the country. It never ends. It keeps, the wheel keeps turning and it never stops. But there are moments, of course, I try and find a way off that and find some time to sleep. One time I was checking my Twitter account and I ended up tweeting with some people, and it was coming to 3 o'clock in the morning. And somebody in Canada, I think, saw that, and he came in and said, "President, don't you go to sleep? Why don't you go and sleep?" So at least I was reminded. I thanked the person from Canada for pushing me to go to sleep. And I obeyed the orders because I also needed some sleep anyway. So.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Armand Giramahoro. I come from the other Rwanda, which is Burundi. And thank you very much for hosting our fellows in Burundi when the crisis started late in April. They have been relocated here in Rwanda, and we have been very well taken. Let's talk about Burundi now. And our countries are called to be like twin countries, brother countries. We have the same history, we have the same, almost the same events that happened in Burundi in any way happened in Rwanda, or in Rwanda in Burundi, vice versa. We speak the same language, almost the same culture. When I am here in Rwanda, I feel like home. I feel that Rwandan at the same time. So in this crucial period, which affects the lives of Burundians, and I can assume also that on your side, you can feel also that at some point it can be felt here also in Rwanda. We have Burundian refugees here. We have lots of movement happening, and especially in this period. So do I think that Rwanda is much more even like talking at the regional level, talking about East African community, that Rwanda is much more concerned or directly called to be in any way engaged to help the country of Burundi or the people of Burundi. It has been a lot that has been said in media, and as a Burundian, I still really want to not only request the help of Rwanda and the other countries to help to fix the country or to solve things in Burundi, but I wanted really to get this, to catch up this opportunity to ask you, His Excellency, what at this stage with the already things that happened, what do you not plan, but what do you think Rwanda can be helpful to help Burundi overcoming the situation, and what also Rwanda can do to prevent that things escalate in this country? Thank you.
I think many important things you have said. The closeness, the similarities, few differences between Rwanda and Burundi, and even compounded by being direct neighbors. There are many things, at least let me start in the recent history. In the recent history, there are many things we've done together with Burundi, very closely worked together, helped each other, and so on and so forth, until recently when some of the things happened in Burundi. And I will say this, for things, the situation in Burundi as it is now, it speaks to a couple of things. One, there are, for every country like ours, Rwanda and Burundi, there are things you can benefit from working with neighbors or other countries, and they can be helpful and so on and so forth. Same with Rwanda. But there are things nobody else is going to do for you. You know, we have to realize this as well. There is really a borderline. There are things you can benefit from being assisted by neighbors, by friends from afar, by anything. But there are things only you can help to achieve yourself. It never happens that another country can come to your country and address your problems and they are finished. And I'm saying this from experience of our own situation. We have had friends, we have had people helping, and in very important ways. But there is one thing they can never do for us. You know, this bringing the society together, people to accept one another and overcome their differences, is something that only people can deal with, and maybe benefiting from the assistance in many other places, but people can't force you to accept one another for a fact that is there, until you really want to do it and do it. So it's in the same way that I want to see these problems of Burundi. The current situation Burundi is going through can largely benefit from neighbors, from friends, from near and far. But there is something only Burundi can address. And that is the internal differences, whether political or otherwise. If they don't take the lead to accept certain realities of their own lives and deal with some of these complex issues the hard way they have to, then any help from outside the borders of Burundi may not deliver that, or may be even wasted. So if you ask what, therefore, Rwanda is ready to do, and we have done this and we continue to do, is to advocate for Burundi where we can and how we can, so that they get that help that they need to do what they only can do, whether in the region or outside of the region. And we have also been talking directly to leaders of different groups in Burundi to try and reason with them and say, maybe there is something to learn from our own tragic situation and history. And we share with them directly. We share with them. You can point to something and say, if you do this, you know that the only outcome is a very serious problem for you. Like we experienced it. If you try this, you have a chance of making good progress. If you try that, but one can only express advice. You really can't force Burundi to do what they have to do. It's only they who can decide to do it. So within the East African region, beyond, and of course for the reasons you have explained, how close Burundi and Rwanda are, we, as you rightly said, we get more concerned about what is happening in Burundi, because problems in Burundi will always spill over to us, like it has happened, as you said. We have close to 60,000 refugees from Burundi here in the country. I don't think any country wishes to host refugees. For us, our country, with our limited resources and so on, it's not something we would be happy to invite or even to have. Later on, it is possible we could even have security problems spilling over, which will attract, this flow of insecurity from one end to another. Nobody needs it. So you can see Rwanda is placed in a position where it is more concerned, and hopefully we can share advice, experience, and whatever support we can give to normalize the situation in Burundi, so that the Burundi primarily are not affected, but also so that we are not affected, because we are bound to be affected without any doubt, just because of the closeness that you have you have already expressed. So it's all the best wishes for Burundi here in Rwanda. Yes, if they make progress, our progress benefits. If there is no progress and only problems in Burundi, they spill over to us. No question about it. And if the same happened here, whatever would be happening here would necessarily affect Burundi as well. So we have interest in making sure that nothing of that kind happens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mutoni Jean d'Amour. I'm from Rwanda. And I first of all want to thank you so much because me standing here has a lot to do with your leadership. I am a genocide survivor, and as the question was asked, the genocide affected my whole life and future. My schooling was sponsored by FARG, which is the fund you put up for survivors who are vulnerable. And from school, I was able to become a lecturer at the University of Rwanda. I teach medical microbiology. And in September, I'll be going to the University of Manchester for my master's in medical microbiology. I'm also a GSC alum. I did this fellowship in 2011, 2012. And apart from that, I call myself your virtual student. I take you as my teacher, and you are the best role model to me. I always tell my friend that when sitting alone, when enjoying my spare time, there are things which come to my mind. One of them is seeing myself in a class you're teaching and exploring very many thoughts you share with different people all the time. I can give two examples. One is personal, another one is institutional, of how you affect me and my life very directly. I heard about your story of the story of the man who sponsored your schooling when you were in Uganda, and more importantly, how you return to the person to thank them and express gratitude and pay it back. From then on, I've been considering you as a senior brother, if I may say, because my life has been funded by people like that as well. From after the genocide to today, everything I own was sponsored by someone else. The other example, which is institutional, is the Girinka program you started. It shows the same character you have to sort of let your history influence you and the love you have for other people. That's how I interpret it. So, talking about our similarities, there is an idea I want to share with you simply because I know you like supporting great ideas, especially of young people. My friends and I came up with an idea of institutionalizing the culture of giving back, as you've been doing it. Most of us, members of the organization we started, which is called Acts of Gratitude, benefited from aid in the past, and we want to give it, we want to pay it forward. We want to help more people and make sure we inspire them to do the same in the future. Simply because we believe the systems, the ideas you have put in place will only be sustainable if we have ready, strong people to support them. Agachiro, the resilience and everything will happen if young people, if there is a movement similar to this one that can push it forward. We started in 2011. We were only 13 of us who had graduated from university. And today, we are 240 young people who contribute money every month to pay school fees for other orphans, to purchase health insurance cards. We have now purchased 250 of them for needy people, and to do all these basic community service work, such as collecting clothes from homes and redistribute them to poor people, take food to hospitals, and all that. So my request to you, you are already an elder brother of ours. You are our president. What would be your contribution to such an initiative? Because we want to see it take roots in Rwanda. We want to see Rwandans pay more attention to the culture of giving back, because we used to have it very strong, and it looks like simply someone else came in to say, I can do it for you.
Okay, simplify my problem.
That is it. Thank you so much.
Tell me, what do you want from me?
I want to be specific.
Yes, please.
Our model is divided into 3 phases. One is to expose people to what happens in the community and get them to have a sense of intervening. Second is education, train them to come up with projects which can fix what they have seen. And third is to empower them, get them money and networks which can help them implement those projects.
Okay.
We have an office where we train our people from, and we would want to see you contribute to the rent.
I will do that.
Thank you so much.
That is... I've been paying rent in many places. I won't fail to pay rent in that one. So, we'll take care of what we can. Of course, the story he was talking about, when I was a child, in a refugee camp in Uganda, I think there people may not know the story, but he touched some elements. So growing up, somebody, it's a long story, somebody who was studying in Belgium at that time, that was in the 60s, I was in primary school. Somebody who knew and was associated with my father when they were still, before I became a refugee, we became refugees and was staying in Belgium. Went around Belgium mobilizing Belgians who could provide assistance, so they would collect money and send it to the refugee camps so that young people like us could go to school. So then I learned of a certain Belgian who actually decided he's going to look after me. I didn't know him. And kept sending money, through the post, through all kinds of stuff. So that so when we reached back here in 97 or 8, I actually decided, I looked for this person, the Rwandese who was studying in Belgium, who had to go to this person who helped me in the 60s, and asked him to check whether this person was still alive in Belgium. And he actually did and traced the person. Yes. So, I wrote a letter to him thanking him for what he did for me in the 60s, where he was sending money through the post. And so I think that's the story he was referring to.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your time. My name is Rebecca Rakabkoza, and I'm from Uganda. My question is, how active is the Rwanda diaspora in neighboring countries, Uganda, Tanzania, DRC, Congo, in the development and rebuilding of Rwanda?
The diaspora generally actually is very active. We have created an institution to mobilize, connect with diaspora, the Rwandese communities in different countries of the world, whether in the United States, Europe, wherever, and then, of course, we start with our neighbors. So the Rwandese who live in other countries have been very helpful, very supportive of what happens here in the country's development. So we are very specific. We are focused on tapping into the diaspora and making the links with the country so that the different possibilities they have, or if there are any possibilities the country can extend to them so that they do better, we also do that. These guys here also.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is Mervyn Nchenga, and I'm from Malawi. I would like to get your thoughts on good governance. My question mainly is to know from you on how important is good governance when it comes to contributing to development. Specifically, I would like to know the practices that Rwanda has put in place, because remarkably, the development of Rwanda has been growing at a good rate. I was amazed when I came here, when I was talking to a fellow Rwandan, when he told me that the rate of corruption in Rwanda is 0%. I don't know how true that is, but...
Well, it is close to zero. It is not it is not exactly zero.
But clearly there are practices that you've put in place that are enabling this development, and I'd like to know what some of those practices have been. Thank you very much.
Governance, good governance is very central to progress, if progress is to be made. Governance in every sense, whether corporate or political or otherwise. So governance creates frameworks of predictability, transparency, accountability, and all this is necessary. And for us, we knew from the beginning and very well understood that if we don't build or establish institutions of governance and allow them and make them work, allow them to work, much may be wasted, and we don't have much to waste ourselves. What that means, for example, is with good governance, they say in government. Government has its role in this development or progress we are talking about. If we, in the national budget, put so much, say, in one sector, let's say health, and say we want to see health make progress, improvements, and so on. We put so much money. A big percentage, actually, of a national budget goes into health. It's one of the top sectors. And for all this money you put there, it is spent, it's all spent, but at the end of the year, you are not able to trace what has come out of this spending. Something is wrong, and mainly many things would have been in the governance that things did go wrong. So it is several things. I think governance helps things to work properly. Good governance. So it is one of the priorities for us to insist on, to focus on, and make sure that there is good governance. Corruption you talked about, yes, corruption kills societies, countries, companies. You know, a lot happens, but it happens with a few. The rest really become collateral. You know, you find a few benefiting at the expense of millions. We cannot afford that situation here. For us, we start with our own realities. We don't have too many resources to waste. We can't afford this reversal of things we want to gain. Our country cannot afford some of the things. That's why we insist on governance, accountability, making sure that every penny, even with the question that came up about foreign aid, even foreign aid, for us we want foreign aid that comes and we can work with whoever has given it to us and say, let's agree where you want this money to go, let's follow together to make sure that it does what it is supposed to do, and in fact, let's hold each other accountable, because we have sometimes run into problems with our friends, the donors. They may give us the money, and it is recorded, say, 100 million to Rwanda. We saw it coming, and then when it comes to saying, where did it go? It's like, no, you don't, that's too much. It's like we shouldn't know. But when we have insisted, sometimes we have found that a big chunk of that actually either did not arrive or arrived and went back. But it is recorded as having been spent. And here we practically say, look, we don't want to be held responsible for saying we received 100 million and we can't show what we did with 100 million. Or what we did is only equivalent to 50% of that. Then our citizens have a right to say, where did you put the other 50%? And how can I answer where the other 50% went when I'm not the one who consumed it? You see, so governance is about that. It's about saying, let's hold each other accountable. Let's see whether things we have agreed should work for us are actually working for us. And this involves the leaders, involves the citizens, involves everybody. We must hold each other accountable at the end of the day. So corruption, where people have to go for service in the hospitals, for example, in the very sector you are conversant with, for health services, and people end up having to pay for everything. If you don't pay, whoever is sitting there, they just ignore you and attend to who is, paying to them under the table. This kind of practice can be very damaging. Doesn't allow things to move. So we have tried to insist on fighting that, and corruption is never completely eliminated. It's always present in some form. But the most important thing, you make sure nobody gets involved with impunity. somebody, I mean, such practices should be accompanied by penalties. And then you reduce them to the minimum you can. But human beings are human beings. So there's sometimes not much we can do to completely overcome some things that stem from human behavior. You can only try and take it to the minimum you can.
Thank you again, Mr. President. My name is Axel Managure. I'm from Burundi. I want to ask the same exact question, but in terms of security, international security being, I believe, one of the determinants of health. What practices did you put in place? Because there was a study that was made lately that establishes Rwanda as one of the best secure places to live in. And it seems like you can travel from Burundi and then you can breathe in Rwanda, but then hold your breath when you reach Uganda. And some friends of mine told me, like in Rwanda, you can even walk down the roads during the night with a smartphone and nothing will happen, which is far from being the case of Burundi and Uganda, as I have been to two places. So what are the practices that your government has put in place to ensure that internal security, or at least a big rate of international security? Thank you.
I think maybe it also comes from the fact that Rwanda has experienced so much of lack of security that we had to go back and try to see that we have security today. Where we are coming from really was a place of total lack of security. So we've been building from the bottom, going up. And all these systems we are talking about, ensuring people have this, and it's not really merely delivering things to them, it's involving them. In fact, in the same way, we from the beginning, we have involved people. You realize, probably for the time you are here, that, or the stories you may know, that even this sense of security that we operate with to make sure that there is security is almost with every citizen. We have tried to make sure that they become part of the security solution. Yes, by participation. So security in a broad sense also then, if we deal with their health care needs, if we deal with their education, if we empower women, if we focus on making sure there is food for everybody, we work hard to achieve employment for people. And then around that, people get to understand that even the other type of security is necessary for this to happen. Yes, for people to have schools and have them working for everybody, to have hospitals, clinics, and so on, working for everybody, to be able to do their own business, the other governance where we try and eliminate corruption. Around that, it's telling people, look, there is this as a big part of the overall security, but there is the other security where nobody or their property should be destroyed. So the physical security becomes part of the bigger security, and an imperative for that, because without one, the other doesn't happen. So this is how we've insisted on that, we've worked towards it. It's every day's responsibility for everyone, and it seems to be working. We really don't accept that. I think we've lost too many people already. We've had the worst of insecurity, of any country. So from there is a commitment and a determination that we can't go back to that. Yes, so we really ensure and we invest, whether it is the ordinary citizen or security forces, and it's like we can't. And for fighting corruption, which can be part of insecurity, corruption which can be part of insecurity, we do it in every institution. And by the way, let me say this. In dealing with the corruption, for example, which even within our own security institutions, we make sure that, globally, but even with these institutions, there is nobody who is going to be above the law. Yes. If it is the law that applies to you, to anybody else, it must be applying to me as well. So as we know in some parts of our histories across the continent, we make sure that we don't have army generals, or police generals, or excellencies ministers, or others feeling they are above the law. That only the law applies to the ordinary citizens, as they may call them. So that, when there is corruption, you always see it's the ordinary person who is being affected. And they say, but how about those people at the top? Are they corruption-free? And if not, why doesn't the law apply to them? If you allow a situation to develop where some people are known to be above the law, then you have a serious problem. Then this security you're talking about won't happen. So it's multifaceted. You look at it in many ways, and so we've tried, and maybe some that difference is emerging, or that significance of what is happening here keeps building up, and we want to make it sustainable.
Your Excellency, Your Excellency, your wisdom is so deep that I think everybody here is ready to start another retreat and listen to it during 3 days. But we know that you have other obligations. So I propose to take the 2 last questions. And
there are 2 young ladies, I don't know how young they are, who are seated here. I think I kept swaying their arms, and I think I use my privilege to but the minister, you can use yours for other people as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Anjali Kolure, and my family is from Canada, but originally from Sri Lanka, which, like Rwanda, has only recently overcome brutal civil conflict. In Sri Lanka, immediately following the 30-year-long civil war in the country, high rates of suicide and the prevalence of chronic depression and trauma have reached alarming heights, yet mental health services in the country continue to be poorly available for the majority of the population. In Rwanda, what efforts have you taken to ensure adequate access to mental health services in the post-genocide period, and how will you continue to prioritize the strengthening of mental health services moving forward? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a critical point. Actually, we are not where we want to be or where we should be on that, on the mental health care and services. I think the supply is just outstripped by the demand. There is much higher demand for those services than what we can provide, but not because we don't pay much attention to it. It has its own complications in terms of available means to us, but the attention is there and the need is there, and we see it. We've tried to put such a care in place, even based on assistance from different places where they have such a capacity, but there's more room to cover, and this is work in progress.
Thank you again for your time. My name is Ashley Porter. I come from the United States, and we got a chance to visit the Genocide Memorial, as Barbara and others have shared. It was very powerful, and I learned a lot. What I newly understand is that the difference between the Hutus and the Tutsis was predominantly a socioeconomic distinction. And so given the goal of unification of Rwanda, I was wondering if you were concerned at all about adding English as an official language, and if that would further separate the poor from the rich, since the rich may have already learned English or would have resources to then learn the language.
Sorry, repeat it again?
Yes.
That part, yes.
Given
English.
the goal of the unification of Rwanda, I was wondering if you were concerned about adding English as an official language, and if that would separate further the rich from the poor, since the rich may have already learned English or would have resources to learn a new language, where the poor might not have such resources.
Sure. I don't think language would be any problem at all in this. Starting with the very fact that, in any case, for Rwanda we have one language. Just like in Burundi. Burundi and Rwanda are very unique countries where people may be different, but they have one language, one culture, everything. This is how it is here. Those distinct separations of who we call this or that is, by the way, only 3. We have countries that have hundreds, and they haven't had the same problems as we have had. I even wonder why. Why we could be suffering from having only 3 when there are people who have hundreds is something to study. So we have one language, which is common to all of us, which we understand and which is official. The French, that has also been another language used commonly here, is just as foreign as English. And if one was to even use the language as an issue, I would still have a problem with the French, because the French language has already caused a problem. If I use the reasoning that you then that really needs to be diluted if it is a problem. But the introduction of English was entirely for different consideration. It's not that any of these are the 2 French or English as foreign languages. that were a problem to us. That is not a consideration or even a part of what happened here in Rwanda in terms of the genocide that took place. It had nothing to do with the language at all, whether French or English. But English, to be introduced, is not just to say, you people take on English and that's it. No, we are investing in actually making sure that those who don't know English get to know English. So we are not just telling people to fend for themselves in terms of learning English. We are making an effort to make sure. That's why you find many people from the region. Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. We have many people who came from the region who are teaching this language, and others from beyond. We have the Peace Corps from the United States that have been here, and other groups that are in rural areas teaching young pupils and students to helping them learn English. So that's not a problem. But the main reason we actually introduced these languages it's a practical issue for English. Almost 90% of our trade and interactions and business and everything is with English-speaking countries. And this is how it has been all the years. Our imports and exports go through Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, which is English-speaking. You go through Uganda, Mombasa. You go through Uganda, Mombasa, Kenya, which both of whom speak English. So again, it's just common sense. That with these people you have such a commonality to that extent. You ignore the language of transaction you have with them. And now with the rest of the world, we go beyond. We are not just locked in this region. We do business with the United States for obvious reasons of our students going to. In fact, we have had problems by we send a lot of our young people to go and study in the United States. There are programs. Of course, the first problem is when they reach there, it's like, they really get lost for the first 6 months to 1 year, completely lost. Yes. So it becomes just obvious that some of these are problems we shouldn't be having, but rather learning English is for good reasons. It has nothing to do with our internal problems we have had historically and so on. And by the way, the people who speak French or who speak English and who do it so badly also. Most of these ones you said who are privileged, who know English, or others who know French, they really don't know. And they are only a handful. They are very few. The majority of Rwandans speak Kinyarwanda and they don't know French, they don't know English. So it's like even French is being introduced like English, because when I came to Rwanda, of course, even now I am still struggling with my French. But when I arrived, even the most educated who spoke French, imagine if it is the French I understood, then you know it was very bad. So even those ones who knew French are very few, but it is even bad French. So we are trying to improve on everything, both the French and English. So thank you very much.